Welcome to Sometimes Video Games. I'm Adam, and today I have a interview with Spaceboat. What's your role on Spaceboat? The director, the designer.
Uh, I guess primarily I'm the person who's making the majority of the game. So like
Mm,
95% of the game is. But I'm the I also am the founder of Recombobulator Games.
mm.
So yeah, whatever
Luis.
title you'd like to use for that.
Have I got your name right there? It's Luis.
Luis, yeah,
Luis.
that's correct.
Wonderful.
You can call me
Um,
Louis. That one's easy for everybody.
we've got a Louis on the channel that doesn't work.
Okay. Yeah,
Great, yeah. We had a cat in the background there. Who's your cat? She's gone now,
yeah,
I think.
that's Sigmar. That's
Sigma.
we're hoping we'll be able to put him as a second player
Oh,
option into the game.
there we go. That's interesting.
Yeah, not a lot of people know, but the main character that we have in the game is our other cat.
Oh,
Yeah, and she's named the same and everything. So we really model like, even the cursor when you're using mouse and keyboard in the game is her
mm,
paw. It's actually literally her paw. I took a
God.
picture of it. Yeah.
That's great. So the first question I want to ask you about Spaceboat is
Yes.
what is Spaceboat?
All right. Spaceboat is a narrative game where you play as a cat in a universe that's filled with something I can't say because there's a certain company with a mouse that would send assassins to my door and kill me if I used it. But it's basically puppets that are furry
Hmm.
and carpety. So we call them carpet-based life forms in this universe because it's a space game too. It's a futuristic space game, and so as a cat disguised as one of these carpet-based life forms, you are trying to catch a shape-shifting jewel thief that created an intergalactic incident. So yeah, that's the basic premise of the game, and the universe is filled with all kinds of interesting life forms and so on.
Yeah, there are a few that you show off in the demo. One of those is I believe some sort of space whale. It's one of
Yeah.
the first characters that you meet called Premium Dale.
Yes.
Seems to be a very on the nose representation of microtransactions in games. What was the decision to make that character?
Actually, the entire game, if you look a little bit, you'll see that it has references to things related to AAA monetization. In particular, the game's core theme, I guess you could say, is the normalization of excessive monetization from games.
Hmm.
And we put elements of that everywhere. So Premium Dale is making reference, yeah, to everything that's related to whales, in the sense of how they're being like one of the main key things for Dale is you get to meet a character who's basically very similar to people that you may have met in real life, that were considered whales, and hopefully by the end of the game you start to have a little bit of a better understanding about him. But we have an arc for him. There's
Okay.
a purpose for that character. We're hoping that people won't see him as a jerk by the time we're done, and
Hmm.
see him more as a victim of what's going on in the industry, and humanize them, if you will.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that that'll come through. We just added recently in a patch the ability to eject him from his chair because a lot of people wanted that, and I'm hoping this is a little experiment. I'm hoping that people will think twice about ejecting him, and if they do eject him, I hope by the time we get to the full game that people will regret doing that. That's the goal.
Because you mentioned that before we started the call. So I went back to rush through the demo and see what happened because originally my first thought was to leave him alone.
Yeah.
In fact, I was kind of questioning why the option was there to begin with. I was like, why am I allowed to do? Why can I do this? And why should I
Yeah.
do this? Um, and then you mentioned there was a little experiment there to see what people thought of. Have you had any results of your experiment so far? What have you
Yeah.
seen?
There was a streamer already that was like, "No, no, I'm not. I'm. Let's leave him alone," type of thing. And I was like, "Good. There's somebody that's like, first of all, it's good that they're seeing the character as more than just than pixels. They're seeing
Mm.
that there's there's a story behind some of these characters, and even though it's on the nose, I know that I made it quite on the nose on a number of levels. Like pre-order Earl is straight up in his name. He's a character who likes to pre-order things and then most of the time has regrets but keeps doing it.
Hmm.
So these characters are a little bit on the nose, obviously, but there is depth to them, and I'm hoping to be able to let people see more of what we're planning for some of these characters. Yeah,
Sure. So you mentioned pre-order Earl.
yeah.
He's a being that seems to exist solely to pre-order items and then eat them. Uh, by the sound of things.
Yeah.
What's what is the what made you target pre-order Earl as a thing? Why is he? Why does he
Well,
exist?
he's supposed to represent the every gamer. We've all been there. We've all been
Yeah.
pre-order Earl at some point or another, right? So the idea here is to show you that even if we don't consider ourselves someone who has either an addiction to gambling or hasn't been too manipulated by the psychological behavioralists that like basically there's a group of people who are not uh, behavioral psychologists, sorry. There's a group of people who are abusing the knowledge that they're gathering from behavioral psychologists and taking advantage of people's mental states and so on. And I wanted to show that even if you haven't been to that level, you are still being affected by it in some way or another. Because if you can identify with pre-order Earl, it should start the dialogue of, yeah, I kind of have been tricked into this kind of stuff, and yeah, I kind of do pre-order even when I know I shouldn't, and that kind of behavior should, if you're a person who considers themselves a normal, so a quote unquote person who buys games and is not being tricked into this stuff, then you consider that. It's like it doesn't take much to go from that to other things later on, like the
Mm.
other characters that are in the game, and that was the point of it.
Uh, is it ever okay to pre-order anything?
I think so. I think pre-ordering is one of the. It's pre-ordering is not a terrible thing if you understand. It has to do with trust, right? Do
Mm.
you trust the other company? So I guess we've seen how pre-ordering could be bad, because if you look at like CD Project Red, for example, I
Sure.
think until Cyberpunk came out, there was absolutely no question. It was like, yeah, sure, they're a good company, they do good things. Look at their track record; it's wonderful, and that was like a no-brainer. So that is it okay to pre-order has become slimmer and slimmer every time, I think.
Hmm.
But I've had some serious thoughts about Kickstarter as well, because Kickstarter,
Mm.
in my mind, is somewhat of a pre-order as well. So I've been there's been a lot of thought behind each one of our tiers, and we hope we didn't go into pre-order zone too far. But the honest truth is, we are an indie company with absolutely like we have some funding possibly coming in here and there, but it's our way of surviving right now, and I think it's justifiable as long as we can. And that's why we made the demo. We made the
Mm.
demo so to show people, no, we really are making a game, and if we can get enough money, we will make this game, and you will get what you're. And like even the demo already, like there were some people who asked for things, and we patched it in. We patched in some things that they wanted.
You also mentioned in our chat previously, Mr. Combini, a
Yeah.
vending machine that works like a slot machine. What's that about?
So one of the things I wanted to do in this game is give people. Well, there's an irony to it, because if you consider like AAA gaming, and you consider how crazy it's become and how weird it is nowadays, where you have all these bizarre schemes where they're making tokens and things like that, and basically they're just slot machines covered up in some
Mm.
way. And I thought it would be interesting to take something that is bizarre but that we accept, that has been normalized in video games, and put it in a real world scenario, so that way people can say, isn't that silly? Isn't that, if you put it in a different context, isn't that bizarre? Like,
Mm.
think of a vending machine. We've always seen it as a thing where it's a machine where you put in money and you get the thing that you want. You press the button, you say, I want that. So we turned it into a machine where it was like, no, you've got 3 tokens and you get to pull like a slot machine, and there's a random chance you'll get one of the items. Hopefully it's the one you want. And that in itself already is like, that's a very strange concept. And if someone saw that, they'd be like, this is ridiculous. This is like it's not in the realm of reality. But the thing is, we're accepting that in video games recently,
Mm,
and it's just a matter of time as those things start to creep into the real world, and we're starting to see that already. Like everything from the Disney, yeah, it's starting to creep everywhere. So it's a question of normalization. It's like what we accept at the time, and I wanted to do that through a video game, which is the irony of it, right? I'm using a video game to make you think about how silly video game monetization has become,
yes.
or just how nefarious it is. But it's that there's I'm hoping people can see that, and one of the main one of the main stories I'm trying to tell is like, look, about 15 years ago, there was a horse armor mod that cost $2.50, and
Yeah.
we were in an uproar. We were like, this is on top of the full price of a video game, and you're charging me 250 for a skin that should be in the game already. And we hated that, and we fought against it. 15 years later, tell me if $2.50 for an armor mod
Mm,
is outrageous. It totally isn't.
no.
So how did that happen? And then that's the premise of it. It's like by putting things out of context, it will shock the. Hopefully,
Mm,
people will, and I'm doing it on the nose so that it's obvious what I'm doing, and I don't like if I do it so that it's all in the subtext. There's too many people are going to miss it,
people will miss it. Yeah.
and yeah, and I'm being super obvious about it. But the thing that's fun here is that we made the game comedic, so it's meant to entertain you, and you're supposed to enjoy this world filled with puppets, right? And in a bizarre space universe. So there are levels that people can enjoy. So if you don't know anything about monetization in games, then you're just going to be exposed to bizarre ideas that you'll find like possibly funny because you need like a subscription to be able to buy coffee or and then the vending machine and all that stuff. So there's a lot of little things that people will probably just chuckle. I've seen some people really get a good kick out of some of the jokes we had in there, and that was nourishing to see someone really laugh at some of the jokes we put in there. I was really happy to see that. It really connected with some people. And if they don't see the other stuff, that's fine. That's fine. As long as it's there, and that the dialogue starts, and maybe at some point they might make the connection between what we're doing here and things they see in the real world.
So, sort of on that, what would you say to people who would maybe say keep politics out of video games? Because that's a big
Oh,
discussion at the moment, isn't it? It's a big discussion
sure,
point at the moment.
sure. Here, the politics isn't really. It's not really the politics; it's the economics.
Mm,
So it's more of a question of, hey, you're being manipulated to pay more, and it's in the game in such a way that it's not like we're not talking about it. We're just showing you examples. So it's not, even though it's a core theme, and I made sure that everything's connected to that because the story itself is actually connected to all of this. Like
mm.
the bad guy, or let's say some of the antagonists are connected to this kind of stuff. So there's a reason why we're seeing all of these things. So the story does take from it, but the you can still enjoy the game without thinking about the economics or the politics, if you want to call it that,
Sure.
of what's going on in here. Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why you. It's not like I'm every 5 minutes I'm punching someone in the face and going AAA is bad. There's none of that. Yeah.
Do you think that's important though to meet the balance there? Because I mean, as we've seen with video games that have come out recently, stuff like Far Cry 6, where they've sort of come out and said, "Oh, it is political. Oh, it's not political. I've been misquoted here, and it's not been." You know, how delicate a balance do you think you need to sort of find with the like politics, quote unquote, and the
Yeah.
video
In
game?
the case of Ubisoft, I think it's difficult to plead ignorance
Mm,
because their symbol is like where else did you get this symbol from?
yeah.
From what I remember, yeah, seeing this like that symbol, I'm like, obviously it's everywhere in the news. How would you not know what that is? That's an obvious. They tried to bring in politics into it, but to claim that it's not politics is, I think it's disingenuous to do that. Frankly, in our case, um, I'm clearly saying that the themes are related to that, but you can still enjoy the game without thinking about that at all.
Mm.
And there's no reason why you can't play the game without thinking about it.
Um, this sort of mention. So one of the last games that you'd worked on, according to Moby Games,
Uh,
was Mass Effect 3,
yeah.
which, with the EA Battle Pass stuff and the use of loot boxes and its multiplayer, was heavily criticized for doing a number of things that you were taking aim at on Spaceboat. Is this a
Absolutely.
coincidence or a direct commentary on your personal work with EA or your personal experience with EA?
Yeah. So the this universe wasn't created yesterday. I created it when I was about 20 years ago. Actually, I'd created even earlier than that. I had lots of stories leading up to the let's call it the spaceboat universe, if we will. And I wanted to go into like I tried to get it going. I remember getting all my cassettes and sending them out to all these companies, and I didn't get any responses. So I figured, okay, I need to gain the skills I need and learn how the game is played.
Mm.
And so I went out there and started working, and I worked for 20 years. And then I was like, okay, I've I've learned enough, I think, at this point, to be able to start my own thing. And so now it's we're at a stage where um, I'm taking everything that I've learned, including all the things that I wasn't in agreement with.
Mm.
So basically, all my experiences working for these AAA companies, I'm bringing it to the game. And when you're a developer, you don't have much control over what you're doing. It's like the old saying that even like a lot of people have been saying, like Sterling has mentioned, they don't put a gun to your head, that kind of like line. They are totally correct in saying that yes, they don't to put a gun to your head, but you don't have much control over what's going on and gets made, and a lot of times it's made against your own personal ethics. So yeah, Spaceboat is definitely I'm taking from that, and this time I do have the control, and I can say this stuff has to stop. These kind of things have to stop, and we need to start by just accepting that it exists, and stop arguing over if FIFA loot boxes are gambling. They are gambling. That's all there is to it. And all of these things are there's a lot of scummy practices that are going on, and I think we're at a critical point. Frankly, we're in a critical point where things are getting normalized now, and we need to stop and go. No, this is not normal, and this is not acceptable. And if we don't do that now, it could be bad. So, like, I mean, we can keep going with normalization of really bizarre practices, I think. So that's my point. I'm bringing my yes to answer your question. Yes, I am bringing my my experiences working for these companies, and now it is my time to be able to speak freely about what it is instead of just being a pawn in the whole process.
Are there a lot of people who feel the same as you in those companies and that they can't do anything? Even I would say maybe higher ups, people who are in charge of projects who then say, well, the company wants me to do this, so I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, most people don't understand that a lot of these AAA studios have hundreds, if not thousands, of people on a single project. Like
Mm.
Ubisoft, Ubisoft's right here, right next to me, like not far from where I live, and I've consistently turned them down, and I've done everything in my power throughout my entire career to never go there. But like it's always the same thing. Whenever they approach me, it's like, oh yeah, you've got 1,000 people working on this project. Wow, it's a big project, a lot of money in here. Yeah, so that means I'll have zero control over anything. I'll just have a thing that I'm responsible for, and then I'll probably work a lot of hours to make something that I'm not okay with.
Mm. What advice? Because I guess I would say you're free of that sort of world now, at least for now, anyway. What would you
Yeah.
say to other people who are in the same position as you were a few years ago, who are kind of stuck there thinking, I hate this, but I have a passion for video games and creating, but I hate what I'm being told to do. I hate what I'm sort of doing here in monetarily.
Yeah, for those people that are like all of my colleagues as well that are also doing it right now, like I mean, I've been having trouble getting them to join me because well, there's not a lot of money in what I'm doing right now.
Mm.
Just getting this off the ground is difficult. But for them, I would say my just speak to the managers, let them know that you're not comfortable with certain things. I know that a lot of times it's like you don't want to be that person who says something negative, because if you start saying it too much, you get put in a corner and they give you a title, like a label, being like someone who's very negative about things, and you get told that you are a negative person for yeah, oh yeah, there was one of my colleagues, super talented, well known in the industry. He brings in some of the craziest talent. Like he was, I worked with him even at BioWare. He brought in the art director from that became the art director for God of War, the new
Oh,
one.
wow.
So yeah, there was a time where we had people that were considered top notch that were working with us at BioWare. It was this golden era, and he's always put down as a person who's very negative because he speaks his mind. So I wish, if you're there, to at least try to get into the habit of saying maybe you're not in agreement with what's going on. And if everybody does that, then you're no longer the Mr. Negative. You won't be Mr. Negative. You're just bringing up some concerns, and you're just letting people know that you're not necessarily in agreement with what's being done, but in a positive, like in a constructive way. I think that's the key. My suggestion is, if we can, try to be constructive and talk to the bosses to let them know. And if you get an answer like that's how business is, just remind them that that's how business is in games by the looks of it, and good luck with that, because it's a slippery slope when you start focusing on Skinner boxes and loot boxes.
I mean, you say it's a slippery slope, and you said a couple of times like you believe things get worse in the future, but what's the climax of this, do you think? What is the point where it gets too much for people? Because at this point in time it clearly isn't. People are happy to spend this. So how far does it go?
I think one of the parts that's slippery about this is that if you start focusing too much on doing like making money off of people with problems with gambling and such, if you just focus on that and you make the game mechanics completely geared towards basically ripping people off, frankly, that's all you know how to do. You've forgotten how to make a game at that point, which means you're just going to be recycling old games without even knowing if it works or not. And you've got a crutch now, and you have a problem. And so, and we're starting to see it. So these companies, I think there's a moment where once they get forced to not have those elements in the game, they're going to find themselves with the inability to actually create anything else.
Mm.
And that's going to be their moment where, if we continue to buy their games at that point, that's where it goes south, because we're basically giving them money still, despite giving us games that are completely broken and they don't know how to make games anymore. Whereas this is where the gamers and the public need to start putting in money into games they believe in, not because they are compelled to play it in some way, or they have this compulsion to play it, but because they believe in the game. They believe in the people and enjoy the game for what it is, and not because they're hooked on it in some unhealthy way. And that's the moment where things will change. And I think if we don't have that, that's the one where it's a slippery slope, because then they have carte blanche to just do whatever they want without having to worry about anything, and they still keep making money, and they'll find some other way of abusing people in some way or another. Like it's like it has to do with also Bartle types. Like basically behavioral psychologists have classified players into categories, and somebody looked at it and said, which player is the one that I can give them something for the cheapest, like what can I do that's super cheap that brings in the most amount of money? And they found one, and then they've been focusing on that. The second that becomes the thing that they can't do anymore, they'll go to the next one in the Bartle types. So don't worry, they'll move on to something, but there's going to be a critical moment where they're transitioning, where it's like that's the moment where we need to start putting a focus on them and saying, you know what, I'm going to indie or whatever else I can find that is more enjoyable.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. So Spaceboat's on Kickstarter at the moment. What's the end of that? When's the goal? Where can we find it? Where can do the thing?
Sure. So the easiest thing to do is do spaceboat.ca/Twitter. and that will bring you straight to our Twitter page, which has links to everything. If not, if you want to go straight to the Kickstarter, you can do spaceboat.ca/Kickstarter, and that should also bring you to the Kickstarter page, which has links to other things. And one of the things you'll probably notice is that we're not doing so well on Kickstarter. And the thing that I would mention to people is that it's okay. We'll probably come back once we we'll see what we can do. And also, there's other things that are happening right now that could actually change the outcome of our stability. So I can't go into detail, but there are things happening that could give us another form of income to keep us alive. That's a good one without breaking any of our ethics or morals, if you want to put it that way.
And if you don't meet the Kickstarter, are you keeping an eye on that? You're saying it doesn't necessarily, the game doesn't, it's not over, doesn't necessarily go away, and you're gonna, because it's a passion project for you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not good that if we don't make it, but it's not necessarily bad either. It's not something that'll kill us. It's not fatal for us. But hopefully we'll stick with us. Hopefully, and we will come back, and you can help us out there. And at that point, I hope we'll be able to maintain the Kickstarter campaign properly this time. Although we really didn't do anything wrong, frankly, we did all the suggestions and everything. It's unfortunate. It just it's the way it was. There was a couple of things with the algorithm that we didn't know about, and now we're starting to understand how that works. It's tough.
It's a learning experience, though, isn't it? It's one of those. But we'll put
But we have big news coming,
Oh.
so keep an eye on us for the next at least. I can't say what it is. All I know is that there is something that's big that's coming, and I'm super excited to be able to say it. And hopefully, that will lead to other things that we're also planning. So hopefully that'll be interesting. So keep an eye on us because we've got some actually really interesting, legitimately interesting news that coming soon.
Good. And we will put the links to your stuff in the little box down below. So if you do want to support Spaceboat and you like what you've seen and like what you've heard here, you can always go over there and give them the support that they need and deserve. Thank you very much, Luis, for joining us today. Have you got anything that you'd like to say extra to people out there?
Yeah, to the people who have been supporting us and gotten us to where we are, seriously, a big thank you. It's given us a lot of, even though we're not doing so well in Kickstarter, it doesn't matter. We've been really enjoying the connections that we've had with a number of people. It's been the community has been wonderful, and that alone for me has been really worthwhile. Even if let's say tomorrow for whatever reason we have to shut down, it's okay. At least I had those great things, and we will be back no matter what. We're not giving up.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.